Welcome to episode, cue drum roll, 50 of these magnificent pods bought by these three brilliant people and this small brown person here. So welcome to the Chris Harris and Friends podcast. Neil Clifford, Manish and Chris Cooper have joined me for 50 episodes now, and I have to say it's been a joy for me. So thank you so much to them. Let's move on to this week's matters. We're going to start with an utterance. Well, actually, it was written down as an interview, but I think it was delivered verbally by Ola Kallenius. Now, he is the boss of Mercedes-Benz. I'm old enough to remember him when he was pre-boss of AMG. Then he became the boss of AMG. And actually, when he was the boss of AMG, he gave us their best run of cars, which is why I think I was really happy including this part. He's a car man. He gets it. So he gave us all those 63 AMGs, the Cs, the Es, the S's. He gave us the SLS AMG. I mean, he gave us some properly clever cars. So he's a good car guy. And he has he's made rather a dire prediction about the European car industry. And I might just pass over to my good friend Chris Cooper, our industry correspondent, to just clarify what Ola might have said and whether we think he's right or not. Chris Cooper.
He actually said this. He said two things. He said Europe's car market could collapse. And then he then wanted to say the industry is experiencing heavy rain, hail, storms and snow all at the same time. That's probably German for a perfect storm of shitness of whatever. Why did he say that, and is he right? He said that, as far as I can tell, I'm not totally intimate with his thinking processes, but I imagine it's not a huge leap to say he said that for a number of reasons. One is European, maybe primarily reason is the European car makers are facing this cliff edge of 2035 where they can no longer sell petrol, I'll think even hybrid powered motor vehicles. And his concern is that given, I think Mercedes right now, 8% of their total deliveries worldwide in 25 are electric vehicles. So not many. In China, as the Trumpton mayor would call it, the EV marketplace is about 35%. So it's bigger than most of Europe. Norway is pretty much bigger, but the Chinese have clearly invested for a long, long time, we touched on this before, in EV manufacturing, battery manufacturing, lots of incentives domestically. So these things, they've had 20 years of investing and maybe 10 years of doing this really well. So the jaws of death, that's my expression, not Kallenius's, he can use that if I'm not in the room, the jaws of death for the European car market that I think he's predicting are that by the time we get near 2035, the European car industry won't have developed enough of an EV marketplace because nobody wants to buy the stuff. They're way behind anyway on infrastructure, batteries, and so forth. The Chinese are going to take over everything because the only cars you're going to be able to buy will be electric, and everyone wants a Chinese one because they're cheaper and they're really good. And the Ford CEO, your mate, you met at Le Mans, Chris, current Ford CEO, what's his name? Jim Farley. I saw him on a podcast talking about the amazing tech that Chinese EVs have already got. So I don't think it would be as calamitous as the whole car market could collapse, but it ain't going to look anything like it does now unless something changes. If nothing changes, it's possible to see how the European car makers can catch up to where the Chinese are on the quality and cost and omnipresence of EVs. Generally speaking, Norway is a bit of an outlier in Europe, but in the rest of Europe, there are fewer private car consumer incentives to buy EVs. Makers have got to start making more. They're losing money on them because they've got to have huge incentives and discounts to give them away. He's right. It's a perfect storm of shitness. So I think he's perfect. He has decent grounds to fear that Europe's car market is not in a great place unless something changes. Something will have to give. Either the 2035 will go away or be diluted in some way, or car makers will radically have to think about changing. Are there so many of us? Will the weaker have to go? Consumers in Europe, including the UK, will have to dramatically change their behaviour for that car maker collapse not to be the outcome. The most likely outcome, if nothing changes, is car makers giving a shit. Is unfortunately my considered view right now.
Neil Clifford, do you give a shit about electric cars?
I give a shit about this because I suppose it's a obviously I didn't study economics, but it's a very simple thing, isn't it? That you can't dictate a market and tell consumers what to do through laws. And if you do, unforeseen, totally shit circumstances come about to people's jobs, industries. You just I'm no Brexiteer, right? Thought that was all silly. But there's no doubt that trying to write a rule which tells consumers and industries what to do is very, very dangerous when it's sort of written by people that have never probably run companies
or anything
or industries or looked after the tricky balance of employing people and making profits. So I think I think he's probably right. No, probably also Mercedes have done a bit of a shit job. One could argue slightly. So maybe he's talking his book a little bit, but there's no doubt that consumers aren't ready. Industry's not ready. Infrastructure's not ready. And the playing field isn't level. Not to say I'm, brilliantly read on this, but I think, labor is much, much, much cheaper in China. Electricity is much, much cheaper in China. Land is much cheaper. Government subsidies are much higher.
Yep.
So I think I mean, it might be that this, and there's no such rules, I don't think, in America. I've just come back from America, which I know I'm going to talk about. You see a lot of Teslas. I was in California, but apart from that, they're going about their lives over there, and there's no way that you could put a law in, I don't think, in the US that people wouldn't get out their guns and start going mad if this sort of insistence was given on the US consumer. The reality is that the EU may well be successful, but it will be successful via killing most of its industries, and we'll all be driving around in Chinese cars, which is basically what Chris said. So I think it's stupid, and I think in the end, the date will go back or the law will change, because I think maybe industry has not been loud enough in shouting about it until it's been a bit too late. So it is a bit of a shitstorm, isn't it?
Do you think, Neil, that incentives rather than sticks would make more of a consumer difference?
Well, that's, if you think about where it started, I don't know, what was it, 5 years, 7 years ago, when there was incentives to go and buy electric cars. And I know there is now for companies, but certainly there isn't. And we've got the new ones that have just come out that are so bloody complicated that, particularly if you're dyslexic like me, you're not going to bloody read them anyway and ignore them, because it's like, just keep it simple. It was very cheap. I had a mate called Pat who was one of the first guys with the X3 or whatever. What's the little BMW thing?
iX.
Still one of them. Yeah, and he used to go to the petrol station, lived in Brighton, drove up to his little garage in southeast London. It used to cost him £5 to charge it up. He was like, this is fucking brilliant. This is the future. And then suddenly, 3 years later, because it's got this little petrol motor that if you do run out of electric, it can get you to the petrol station. Oh my God! Well, that's, you can't now go in the ULEZ zone. You've got to pay for it because it's not really electric. It's only pretend electric. And then suddenly it's £40 to charge it up. Like 3 years later, he's basically like, bollocks. What I thought was good is no longer good. So I think for sure incentives and carrots as opposed to sticks, I think are definitely the best way to change consumer behaviour. And actually, everyone's going about their lives. You can sit in Brussels as long as you want and write all these amazing strategies and laws and how you're going to save the planet, and we all want to do that. But if the consumer's not ready, or they can't afford it, or they live in a flat, or a million other reasons, they're not going to take any interest, are they? So I think it's a very naive situation. I would be desperately worried. Thank God I'm not, I always dreamed of being in the car industry. I always wanted a job in the car industry, but Christ, I wouldn't want one now.
No. Manish, what do you think?
I was thinking about something that we said last week when we were talking about autonomous cars. And the idea is that you can't kind of push back technology. I think it was actually Mr. Cooper who said, they're here to stay, people will get other jobs. And I think you've got to either be consistent or not. And I think the problem or the point is that in the Western world, we do think we choose things. We think we choose our leaders. We think we choose our industrial policy, or certainly we think we debate them. In China, these things are thought through and imposed. I mean, not only have they created one of the greatest kind of infrastructure machines, just literally the ability to produce these cars en masse, to ship them en masse, they've bet on them. And they bet on them by going around the world and securing most of the world's rare earths as well. I read today that China has almost 1,200 coal power stations.
One a week. It's still opening one a week.
Yeah.
So, but they've also had the fastest conversion to renewables that there are. I think we're 41%. They're 29% now. 2023, they went boom. So I think this is more of a war situation than it is a simple commercial situation. I mean, this is a bad analogy, but in the Second World War, probably what the piece of paper did was give us a year to really rearm. And I think we just have to decide, in a way, as Europe, what we want to do. I mean, Neil, you're saying that the Americans have made that decision, which is, I don't give a shit about electric cars. We're going to carry on buying our big cars.
Got incentives. I think there's carrots. I think. I mean, I'm sure.
But I mean, you said, if you told an American what to do, there will be no more petrol cars in 2035. You've pointed out that they'll probably all grab their M1s or their M6s or their M7s and go out and stop that happening.
You'd be voted out.
Sorry?
You'd be voted out.
Yeah, you would be. So we're a little bit cuddlier here, but I wonder whether we do need to wake up and then just make a decision, because that's the thing I think that we're really a bit crap about here. And obviously it's easier if you have two languages, 1.4 billion people, a big central government, much easier to make a decision than having, 30 odd nations, 20 something languages, lots and lots of cultures. But I do think as Europe, we need to make a decision. I think what Kallenius has argued one side of the coin, which is don't give us an artificial kind of deadline. Don't give us a guillotine, because if you do chop us at 2035, you have no idea of the consequences. I'd flip it around and say, well, but what's your plan? Because as you pointed out, Mercedes, the most powerful car company in the world not that long ago, pre-Tesla. They're still a pretty powerful car company. Have they been a bit schizophrenic about this? I mean, I've always had this slight thing, and maybe it's a German thing. I know he's Swedish, but Germany's had the best recycling in Europe. It's had kind of, the best petrol consumption in Europe. They've got amazing numbers of people using heat pumps, but also they do put the most diesel cars in the world. They build all the diesel trains in the world, they build generators. I mean, it's a really, I always wonder with Germans whether there is a kind of inherent schizophrenia in them. Personally, they'd love to be green and lovely and cuddly, but actually they export a lot of the world's industry. And I think they just don't. Mercedes, BMW, all of these people have to make a decision. Either we do compete with the Chinese, but we do it on a more warlike footing, if you like, or we don't.
You made an interesting point there, and I think Kallenius has said this, and with my Motorsport UK hat on, we've made the same argument to UK government and others, is to say we all get that the world is changing, and that the ways of the past in the unthinking consumption of hydrocarbons and release of greenhouse gases is no longer acceptable for obvious reasons. Let us solve the problem. Don't tell us how to solve the problem. So allow us some freedom for innovation, technology solutions. We all get what we're trying to get to. Don't hamstring us to say you have to do it that way. I was just thinking of something while you were talking about the incentives thing. In Norway, where 50% of new vehicle registrations are already EV, way above anywhere else in Europe, certainly in the UK, you can drive in a bus lane if you have an EV. I'd buy an EV if I could drive in the bus lane here.
What's the great irony of Norway's EV?
What's their big export, Neil? I mean, it just
what
seems to me, Chris,
allows them to do that. It's the fact that
the same thing as Germany. You know? What does it export?
Yeah. Well, they've got embarrassed by that now, which is why they're doing all this stuff. There's no VAT. No VAT.
Sorry.
They're all multi-millionaires. They've got a population of 3.
I'll never listen to the Norway example.
A $2 trillion sovereign wealth.
Do you think they're still run by quislings?
I think so.
But I do think when Norway is cited as this paragon of electric car purchasing,
I didn't say that. I said
no. I'm saying, but it is. But Norway needs to be parked. I just think their incentive. Also, they've reduced their incentive scheme, and impressively, they sell a lot of EVs still. I think what's fascinating about
interested in bus lanes?
Noted. I'll talk now. I think what's interesting about this is that it's very rare for the CEO of a brand as recognisable as this to sound so vulnerable. I think it's the vulnerability of the statement to me. It's almost Mercedes-Benz. The iconography of Mercedes is quite 39 to 45, isn't it? It's quite abrupt. We're not to be messed with. And you've almost got this guy. He's like a Labrador rolling on his back, going, "Look, we've got soft bellies. We're really vulnerable. We could get done over here." And it's really strange to hear someone speak like that. Do we feel sympathetic because of that? I think slightly I do, because I think what we're seeing here is we're going to see car companies fail in Europe in the next 5 years, I think, maybe a bit longer. But it's one thing failing through your own idiocy and inadequacies and poor decisions, but it's another thing failing because governments have not really allowed you to, as Chris rightly said, innovate at your own speed. Can you imagine if, Neil, in your industry, if someone came to you and said, right, you can do whatever you want, but you can use these 2 materials. They've got to be this color and this shape. And, they've been dictated to on a level that's unprecedented for any other industry. And they've been dictated to by people who don't know a fucking thing about cars. And ironically enough, by people who don't use cars most of the time. We know the political classes tend to be picked up in a Prius and taken to the airport, don't they? So that's why I do feel some sympathy for them. I just think, and then the other question we asked to each other, and I'll put this to all of you now: is it too late? Is it already too late, Chris Cooper? Is it already too late?
I mean, never say never, but I think in its current form, I mean, crikey, when Sergio Marchionne was around running Fiat and Fiat Chrysler, he would say, and going back to the 90s and early 2000s, there was chronic overcapacity in the European car manufacturing industry, 20%. And that was a different kind of problem because no government wanted to say, they all agreed, but nobody wanted to be the one that took the pain. So protecting car factories has become, a completely cliched political trope. If you've got a car factory, you never close it. Hope something else happens to it. So this has been stored up for a long, long time. I would say, I think there will have to be changes to incentives. There'll have to be changes to the target. Hopefully the nature of how you achieve the target, the timescales, all those things. But none of that's going to happen without a fundamental change in the assumptions over how big is the car industry in Germany and in parts of Western and Eastern Europe. I think, that's a given.
Neil Clifford, what do you think? Is it too late?
No. I'm always an optimist. I think industry and companies are immensely clever. They just need they need the noose loosened. They need the ladder shoved under a little bit. And I think that if we're talking about the EU, I suppose, aren't we? there must be immense internal pressure. If this is an outward statement in the Times or the FT or what it was, you imagine the pressure internally from every single manufacturer into the EU. And surely, Germany is still by far the most powerful nation in the EU, I would suggest. So if anyone can make some changes in order to give companies, industries, technology a bit more time to adapt. I think the challenge is, it's not a level playing field, is it?
No.
The Chinese have been brilliantly clever and long-termist, as they are both those things. But also, you're paying your employees probably 20% of what you're paying in Europe. Your electricity bills are significantly lower. Your government incentives are high. Your land is almost free. I mean, it's a difficult comparison. That's why the EU is trying to do it via tariffs, aren't they? To balance it on tariffs, but it's a little bit more complicated than that, because a lot of the German manufacturers are making cars in China and importing them back into the EU. Some of them, so. A lot of the battery technology by Mercedes and BMW, I think, is in China.
Yeah,
So I'm not
BYD
sure
and Cattle, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Manish,
sure. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think it's too late or not?
No, I don't think it's too late. But I mean, the one place I don't agree with Neil is you're right, it's not a level playing field. It's stacked in our favor. We built the playing field. We're the ones with the money. We break down the borders. We were quite happy to get the Chinese to build for us left, right, and center, and let those companies make massive profits, which they basically banked. Who built the Chinese infrastructure? It wasn't Mao. It was us. And Tim Cook, why is he the chairman of Apple? Because he built the Apple infrastructure. But 12 years building that supply chain. So I don't think it's a playing field. We built it. Now we're eating it. But what I would say is that I don't think it's ever too late, because at the end of the day, Europe is rich by comparison. Chinese gross domestic product per capita is nowhere near ours. What we're, I think, all saying is the same thing. We would love Europeans to buy EVs, hybrids, whatever, something that's going to effectively make a big difference to our hydrocarbon consumption, and we should do it by incentivizing rather than maybe putting a guillotine there. But then Kallenius has got to pull his finger out and build some good cars.
Not give us the EQS.
Correct.
I think that is a turd of a car.
Well, here's a question for you. Maybe this gets to the hub of it all.
Yeah.
Right? Would you? I'll speak for myself. I wouldn't buy a Chinese electric car. I just feel that we should support our domestic and European car industry. And I'm not a xenophobe. I'm very international. Look at me. I'm not from around here. But actually, I feel quite strongly now. We've got a chance.
Yes.
To back our boys and girls, and I think we probably should. What do you think? Am I being terribly xenophobic there, Chris?
No, you're not. But I think you're being. It's a plaintive plea. Anybody who I know is thinking of buying an electric car. Lots of people ask me. I only know 7 people, so say 6 of them say I'm thinking of buying an electric car. They all would say, "Well, I'm going to get one of those Chinese ones because they're quite cheap, aren't they? And apparently, they're quite good."
Yeah. We're a niche community, unfortunately, of 5% of.
Oh no,
aren't we? Yeah, I think if you're my brother, who's, I don't know. I mean, no one's writing checks for cars now, are they? So it's either $299 a month or $399 or $499. You know what I mean? You go and get the BYD or the MG or whatever, and it's going to be a lot cheaper. It's something that we could against value.
Maybe that's something we could do as a nation. We're a very good banking nation. We've got a very old history of banking. Maybe governments could start to create cheaper loans for homemade or European-made electric cars. Maybe there is a good financial incentive.
We could talk about the car finance market in the UK on another day.
Okay.
Right. Here's a new one for you. Cars that become part of the family. This conversation can go one of two ways. It can either be full of really cool anecdotes that make everyone go, that's great, or it can become a bit saccharine and sweet. If it becomes too saccharine, I'm going to pull a plunge on it and move on to the next person. You've been warned, my learned friends. You've been warned. Tell us a story, Neil Clifford, about a car that became part of the family.
I don't know whether you can press the buzzer on the saccharin or the whatever it was. The first car that we bought as a family in 2005 was the new the new Land Rover Discovery 3.
Yeah.
Right? This was the first time that we've had a new car that's not a sort of company car, sporty Corrado 205 Renault type thing. This was like grown up, two bloody kids, not bloody kids, nice kids. One on the way. Well, he wasn't born to 2008, but so we had to be sensible for a change. We traded in. We had one of those Jeep Cherokees that we bought, like a 7-year-old thing, not the pretty one, but the fat one.
Yeah.
The first one was nice and square and designed on an Etch-a-Sketch, and then it got fat, didn't it? So we had that one, the black with tan. It is okay, but then we were like, I've been promoted. I'm now a director. Let's be all very sort of middle class and Muswell Hill. We're going to go and buy a brand new sort of car. And you know what? That I still love that. I wish I hadn't bloody sold it. That Disco 3. I know everyone talks Disco 4. But the Disco 3, which is the same bloody car without the sparkly bits, the dash it's all fucking great, isn't it? And that car, we owned it for 6 years, did I think 90,000 miles a year, as you do, being sort of fake middle class, driving down to Bude, down there. What you do when you got young kids, and it smelled, in the end, it smelled of sort of sick and sand. You know what I mean? Because the kids are always sick in it, but amazing stories. We had the greatest hits of Queen constantly playing in the sort of CD player, because it was still pre-Bluetooth and streaming. So it was all about that 6-disc interchanger, and it had a bit of Simply Red in there. But I'm sure those discs are still in there. No one's ever got them out. And we used to sing along, and I shouldn't have sold it, really. It'd be a nice little family memory, just stuck in the middle of the bloody lawn or something. So if that's saccharin, I apologise, but
no, it's not at all. Would you? Do you think it? Were you sad that they left you, or was that just part of the process?
It was part of the process at the time, isn't it? You always look back. Selling any car is always a bloody mistake. You wish you can keep all of them, and I don't do a bad job of that. But that it was. I don't know. I can't even remember what we. Oh, we traded it for the mistake was actually. Now you remind me. We traded it for a Defender.
What happened to the Defender?
I then sold it because I got a job in Switzerland. I got another Defender, left-hand drive one, which my wife then turned over on the M5, and we wrote it off. But that's another story, going along on its side at 70 miles an hour on the M5, going down to fucking Bude. You always go to Bude. So it was a mistake trading it in, because even though the Defender is great and cool, and I mean, you swapped a good car for a shit car, basically.
Yeah, that's another. I'll write that down. Trading a good car for a shit car. That's another.
Yeah.
Someone just said, can we just make sure that we actually choose all the points that Neil Clifford during his monologue says? Oh, that'd be a good discussion for next week.
I tried to capture them. I do try to capture them, but I'm too busy rambling.
Member of the family.
I was torn here between two BMWs and a Disco. But I think it's got to be one of the BMWs, because interesting, that Disco you bought, Neil, was that the first new car you bought with your own money?
Yeah.
This is the same. It was, I bought it in 2001, and it was the first new car I bought from new, had spec'd it and all and everything. It was an E46 BMW 330 diesel sport touring.
Nice.
It was such a cool car. And part of the reason why it was really cool was because that was the car I brought my boys home from hospital after they were born.
Oh.
Mm.
And I had 2 weeks to think about this, because I mean, Neil, you are sorry, Manish, you know more about. Actually, no, Neil, you know more about babies and doctoring than Manish does. You must do. Yeah. Anyway, twins, generally speaking, arrive early, and generally speaking, they come out the sunroof. So we sort of knew they're going to come out the sunroof rather than arrive naturally. And we had a date. There was a date when they're going to arrive. And being twins, that doesn't really. And about 2 weeks before that date, I'd been into Watford on a Saturday morning and bought a whole stack of car magazines to see me through the weekend. And I was really pleased with myself because I knew at some point quite soon life was going to change. So I thought I'm going to buy all the car magazines I can, go and get the car clean, vacuum it out, because in 2 weeks' time, this is all going to change.
Yeah.
And then when I got back home, Lynn said, I think it's now. I think it's coming now. And I said, no, they're not. No. I've got the next 2 weeks planned. I've got all these car magazines to read. I've got plans for the rest of my natural life, which is what I saw it. I was fencing really. I can't imagine how I felt this now. I've got two fantastic boys and wonderful family. It's just, it's the greatest gift of life. But I was sort of a reluctant father. So the idea of them coming 2 weeks early was sort of, well, hang on a minute. I need a notice of that.
Yeah, no one sent me that email.
No, I didn't get that memo. So because they were premature and they were quite a bit early, Cameron had been underneath. So they come out the sunroof. Happens really quickly, actually, of anybody who's been there for sort of that moment. They put this modesty screen over, and there was a lot of preamble getting Lynn ready for it, blah, blah, blah. And then the bloke said, right, okay, we ready? I was like, okay. And then literally within seconds, which was Cameron, he came out first, was there. And then there was like this 3-minute hiatus. I was thinking, I've got an invoice for 2. You've only produced 1. There's another one in there. There are only so many places it can be. Do you want a hand looking? And then Finley came out second. So they were in there for 2 weeks. So I read all the car magazines, must have vacuumed the car and polished it about 1 million times before I knew it was a Sunday morning, Watford A&E department near us. And that was the start of that car being the happiest part of our family, really. I did everything with it. It was the car I learnt the Nürburgring in. Because in these days, 20 years ago, so 2002, 2001, yeah, 2002, I was learning the ring. So I would drive it out for a tourist farm day when you could do tourist farm days with a fantastic lady, Gabby Rusen, who was sort of a peer of Sabine Schmitz at the time. They were the 2 female hot shoes at the ring. She was the then partner of Dirk Scheusman, a dear friend of ours. And she was brilliant, very, very understated, tall, but very, very understated. We eventually asked her to join the catering thing that we were doing. And she said, no, those things too bloody dangerous. So it went to the ring. It taught me how to drive the ring. It went on holiday. It had dogs in it. It had my newborn sons in it. And so for that reason, it's very hard to imagine any other car usurping that in my life as the car that became part of our family.
Have you ever seen it again? Would you buy it back?
I sold it to my brother.
Oh, very good.
I had it for about 3 years, and then I sold it to my brother, and he had it for another 3 or so years. So I did regret selling it. I'm trying to think what I got into. It would have been. I'm trying to think what it went into. It probably went into a Discovery or secondhand Range Rover or something. And I always missed it because it was a sport, not an M Sport. M Sport kind of came a bit later. So yeah, so I think it's probably gone to the great Bavarian Motorschwerken thing in the sky. But yeah, that would be mine.
Poor old Finley, who came out second and was lost somewhere in his mother's pelvis, is actually producing his podcast at the moment. So God knows what he's thinking. There he is. Sorry about that. There you go. We're glad you finally popped out, Finn. Manish.
If this was from personal experience, I could only ever really talk about 2 cars. but there is a car that's part of the family. It's part of the extended family. But When I first went to Tobago, it was spring 2003, and Nat's parents, back in, I think it was 1972, her father is Trinidadian, but his family always had land on Tobago, always had land there. They had their family home in Trinidad, but they had land that they parceled off over the years to pay for school fees and this and that and the other. But in 1972, he was able to buy an estate. He was a lawyer at Texaco, and used to run the Caribbean for them. And it's a very beautiful house. It's an old plantation called the Franklin's Estate. It was the foundations were laid in 1776, and I always loved going to the house because it's got these Jurassic Park white gates. I mean, big, 30 feet high, and on the side it sort of says Franklin's Estate, 1776. And I remember the very first time I went there, and there's a kind of, the garage is really just a giant shed, and there's a wonderful white long wheelbase Land Rover from the early 70s, which did all the hard work. But next to it, and it's my mother-in-law's, I mean, she passed away sadly a couple of years ago, but it was her car. It's an absolutely beautiful 1975 Peugeot 504 brake, the estate.
Was good.
Yeah, cool.
Good.
In white. And I had, first of all, she was always very cool because she was German, would always wear a Liberty blouse and some combination of either a cream skirt or a white skirt, and sunglasses. And she was a terrific driver, actually. And she drove. I mean, Tobago's roads, certainly, they're probably not the finest, many of them, but she was fantastic, very confident driver, very good driver. And I remember that very first year, seeing her drive this car, and she'd had it, I guess, by then for almost 30 years. And this thing was fantastic. They looked after it. This thing was washed, it was cleaned. It was a 30-year-old car, had a few miles on it, no air conditioning, because the air conditioning in the 70s and 80s there was just leave your windows down. And she used it until really, I guess it was about the early 2005. And I remember they couldn't sell it. They didn't want to sell it. So they parked it in the garage, and she bought, which I thought was rather sad at the time, a 2004 Nissan AD estate in silver, because that's the slight problem with the Caribbean. If it's effectively just completely populated with refurbed Japanese cars. God knows where they actually come from, perhaps China, who knows. They basically clean them up a little bit, make sure they work, and send them out there. And she drove that. I remember when Darcy was a baby, all the same experiences that you've both described, the sick and the Tobagonian sand, the sweat, the milk, the dropped ice cream. I mean, you name all of that. It would have been wonderful if it had been the Peugeot, because I think that would have been a really fitting final 5 years for that car. But sadly, it sat next to the Land Rover. The Land Rover did get used. The Peugeot didn't. But that was, and still is, it's still there. Still there. She's gone, but that white car is still there. It's not cleaned. It's quite rusty now. And but I have to say, when I go back, it's one of the happy things looking at that, because I remember in her, how old would she have been? Kind of in her early 70s, just chucking this thing around, shopping.
And it would still start. I bet you went back there, stick a booster on it.
You're right, actually. I bet she does.
You forget the 504 in Africa was considered to be the mechanical equal of a W123 Mercedes. It had the same reputation. And it's amazing how brand images change, isn't it? That people don't spot this, that a 504 was just as robust as a 123 Mercedes.
Yes.
The suspension travel on it was just the most incredible thing.
Yeah.
How comfortable was the driver's seat? The driver's seat was incredibly comfortable in a 504.
So it was incredible. The potholes, when there was the rainy season in Tobago is the summer, and it basically finishes in our kind of autumn. And when it rains there, I mean, so that vertical Caribbean rain, and it just washes roads away. And I'm telling you, I mean, the potholes are literally 8 inches, 10 inches. Sometimes you just get these ruts, which go on for yards and yards and yards. I mean, this baby would just, I mean, it was like driving in a Land Rover over these things. The French had some shit sus, didn't they, in terms of engineering back in the day? God, they did.
One of the problems with being motoring journalists was that because the whole point of doing it was you got free cars. So the basic calculation to rewind was you thought, well, I could go into the real world and earn 5 times as much, but I'd only spend it on cars. So I might as well be a motoring journalist because I get free cars and I'll get some money. What you don't accept or understand is that you're not really a functioning human being. So you couldn't have got a proper job. So you're a bit fucked anyway. So, and the free cars that you got weren't really yours. And did you always have the one you wanted at the right time? No, because you weren't seen enough on the magazine and you got paid 12 grand, which wasn't really enough to eat. But still, you had a great turnover of cars, and it meant that you didn't have the permanence. You didn't build relationships really with cars. You built them over if you were lucky enough to have a long-term test car for a year, you could build quite a rapport with that car. But it wasn't a member of the family really, or if you put it into that role, you were probably trying a bit too hard. So the cars that I drove my children home from hospital when they were born were all different. And I remember a C55 estate. Was one of them, a black one that hit a Badger and then became an XC55 estate. And there was a W212 E250 CDI. The one that came back in that is about 50 yards that way at the moment. I think there was that. I don't know what my daughter came back in. I think she might have come back in a what would she have come back in? I've no idea. There you go. So I don't have that relationship with those cars, but I have had cars that have become part of the family, and it's a really tricky one to decide. And actually, I like living in the present when it comes to cars. I'm not very good at living that much in my past. And yesterday, my eldest returned from a European adventure, his first European adventure. In a car. He's got a Golf Mark. He's got a Mark 7 Golf. Not the R, the one below it, but it's 13 plates. Done 100. It's now done 145,000 miles. We took a gamble on it, and he's just done I think 3,500-4,000 miles. He went to some festival in Romania via just about everywhere you wouldn't want to. If you wrote on a piece of paper, you go, "Oh, why are you going there? That's trouble." And he rolled through the gates. We're in Cornwall at the moment. He rolled through the gates where we're staying, and this car just looks fabulous. It's had the shit kicked out of it. The windscreen got smashed in Romania. It's got a big old war wound down one side. It's been on an adventure, and he has bonded with it. He's had that experience with this car, and I now know he's going to talk about that car the way you guys just spoke about your cars.
Exactly.
And to see him sit there yesterday, and he hadn't really stopped driving it for like 4 days. He's raced back from Romania with all sorts of adventures and scrapes with the police. And he sat down, he had a beer last night, or a glass of wine it was, and it was just ticking away in the background next to us.
Brilliant.
And I said to him, let's go and look at it. And let's go look at all the war wounds. And that's my new family member, I think. I just love the fact that I've seen him build a relationship with this thing. I mean, it looks awful. It's covered in dents and it's missing this and that, but it's been used. And I think cars at their very best are there to make memories. That's what they do for us. They make people like us memories. And it's really powerful to see one of your offspring that you love dearly go on that initial adventure, and that will embolden him to go and have other memory making episodes. So dear 145,000 mile Golf that is, I think, close to shitting itself. If you go now, you've done your job. What a job it's done.
The irony is, maybe we're just being old farts, but he sort of owns peak car, doesn't he? He doesn't know it yet, really. But if he starts old dad, I'm going to trade it in for the new, I don't know, Renault Electric or whatever. It's you should over the years do it up for him, and just in 10 years' time, he'll realise that he owns the everyman's equivalent of a Ferrari Testarossa, didn't he? I mean, it's peak.
It is, and maybe that's the upside to that first part of our conversation today. Is that if you look at what's been made in the last 10 years by this German country, it's astonishing how much value there is out there. I can't. When I bought that thing, I had a choice of that or a 1 litre Golf, and they were the same money. Because at that point, it was locked down and everyone wanted this and that and they wanted cheap cars. No one wanted these things. They're just sitting on forecourts. And I thought, we'll take a punt on that. We'll find a way.
Good punt.
And I think what we'll do is just get another one. Wear this one out, get another one. It is, you say, it's peak car.
Well,
Neil, can I just ask Neil?
Vincent just passed his test, and I said to him, what car, what you thinking? He said, Dad, I just like what Arthur's got, a Golf Mark 7.
So I was just about to ask you, has Vincent passed his test?
He did.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he did. He did. He passed it first time. He's the only one out of the three that passed it first time. So it's really.
So Darshi's going to be sitting his in the next month. I've got exactly the same thing. Same instructor. Neil, of course, recommended Ralph.
Yeah,
and he's been taking Darshi out.
Yeah,
and we're going to have exactly the same kind of, same issue.
Yeah,
so I think we'll come to you. I think great idea. Golf Mark 7.
Yeah, basically it is the car really.
I sat in this thing last night, and it's got two. It's the not 7.5. It's got 2 dials. Got a perfectly good screen with all the stuff you want. Everything works. It's a Piech car, so everywhere you put your hand underneath the steering column, it's all smooth surfaces. Everything that needs to be fabric is fabric. Everything needs to be hard wearing plastic is plastic. And if you get in a modern Volkswagen, if you sit in an ID7, maybe that's another. It's not the same thing. Okay, let's do a very quick Formula One half-term report because we've not spoken about Formula One for a couple of weeks. And I think now they're all on their summer breaks. Some of them using that to put up extremely stinky social media posts. Some of them disappearing off the face of the planet. I know what I'd do. Let's have a little think about those half-term reports. Manish, you can go first.
Very quickly, I put 5 lines down. Papaya rules were ridiculed, but they seem to be very, very healthy rules. I mean, those 2 guys, they are competing to the edge of their abilities, as we pointed out last time, to within 10 centimeters of the edge of their abilities. But it feels like a healthy and strong rivalry. And I think McLaren are sitting pretty. They've had a reasonably wonderful, you never have a flawless season. No one ever has. But it's about as flawless as it could be given these rules. They don't have a 2-second a lap advantage over every other car at every Grand Prix. These rules are so weird. Mr. Cooper's talked about the tyres, the weight, the aero. It's all very odd and very random. But just overall, I mean, they've also provided us with a fantastic. The last time I was as excited as this going into kind of the second half of a season since we've had these summer breaks is actually Lewis versus Nico in 2016. I actually really enjoyed that kind of intra-team rivalry. Obviously, Max versus Lewis was probably the most exciting season kind of in more modern times, 21. So that was point 1. Max is staying at Red Bull. So Mr. Harris and I were spot on with that. And that makes me really rather happy, despite all that.
I owe you an onion bargee.
So yeah, well, I mean, we'll actually, yes, you're right. Actually, Neil did bet me an onion bargee he'd leave, but that means you can't really have believed it in your soul, I think. So that's and that's quite amusing. But Christian Horner's gone, and I think we all got to just reflect on that. Did we think he would survive into this season? I certainly didn't think. I thought once he'd got into this season, he'd probably manage to wing it and survive. But he's gone. Ferrari, the number of predictions. I decided to have a quick look at some very famous drivers' predictions about which would be the team to beat this year. And many of them said Ferrari. Ferrari would be a dominant team. It was the strongest driver pairing. They were looking really, really good for the title for the first time in years.
But also, to add to your point, and this is really important when you talk about Ferrari, they finished the season with the fastest car last year.
They did. Actually, Joe Twyman, I spent a little bit of time with him last week on something completely unrelated. And I did bring that up. And I said, why did they switch to this push rod front suspension system? They had a fantastic car. They decided to change the philosophy of the car. And you know what he said to me? He said, Lewis has always had at Mercedes, or Lewis has recently had a push rod system. And he wondered whether maybe that was Ferrari trying to build a car that would accommodate Lewis. I have no idea whether that's true, but it was a really interesting point he made while we were having a chat. So and as I said it before, I think it's very tough to see Charles in his, I think, 7th or 8th year at Ferrari as an also-ran, making lots of money, but really not a chance of winning a championship. And he's got to be really worried about next year now. It's just been too many years, too many rule changes, and they've just never done it. And he's got Lewis Hamilton to teammate. Lewis, just hasn't sadly produced the goods. You can say he hasn't clicked with the car or whatever. I don't know. But the bottom line is Formula One's a results-based business. You're compared to your teammate. You're compared to the people come before you. He hasn't produced. That's it. I thought that I have a real thing about before the season. I think again, Mr. Cooper and I talked about this. Toto Wolff studying the data with Kimi Antonelli. I think that's absolutely fine. I think Formula One is data driven. I think there's lots of data on drivers. I just think replacing Lewis Hamilton with data, I'm not sure it was the smartest move in the world. I will believe to the day I die that had he given Lewis a 2-year deal, Lewis would be at Mercedes. He would still be at Mercedes. I think the 1+1 just allowed John Elkann that little glimmer of light to leap in and grab Lewis. And I think that's sad. And I would say Mercedes are being very cocky about 2026.
Are they?
They're looking forward to the engine rules. They're going around telling everyone they've got the car, they've got the thing. I've even heard it's not even the engine, it's Petronas who've made a super fuel because next year we're going to be on recipe fuels, and so let's see. And my last point was Alpine looked to me like a team that's going to be sold. That really is the big last thing. I do wonder if someone will buy them, who will buy them, because the stuffing has gone out of that. It's the old Renault team, the old Benetton team, the old Tolman team, and it just looks dreadful. It just looks dreadful. So that's it. It's my half-term report.
Chris Cooper.
I wrote 4 words. Changing of the guard.
Yeah.
Changing of the guard. And I think you've covered most of what guard is being changed. I think, and there could be more. But it does feel like as big a shift as Michael retiring at the end of 2006, Mika going, Mika Hakkinen, blah, blah. It feels like a real sort of seminal moment. And maybe not before time, because we like change and we like looking forward and blah, blah. So it's all good. The papaya rules, I teased those before because I tend to live in a corporate world where simple things are given bullshit names. And I hate that. If it's a simple thing, give it a simple name. I'm slightly more sympathetic to it now, having read a bit more about the extent of the cultural change in McLaren. But I challenge you on one thing, Manish. We won't know whether those rules are working until it's at the business end of the season and one of them is going to lose big. Until then, let's just hold our judgment on whether those rules are working yet. They ain't been tested yet.
I think that's fair enough. Yeah. But then again, by definition, these rules always go wrong, don't they? They're intended to go wrong. Neil Clifford.
It feels like today actually, but yesterday I was at Laguna Seca watching the vintage reunion amazing car race thing, which I'll talk about later. But Zach Brown, my connection to this little section, Zach Brown was there racing one of his amazing car collection, one of the IROC cars, Camaro or whatever. I always think IROC wrongly is Porsche. You get attached to all those multicolored Smarty, 3-litre 911s, don't you? But actually, IROC clearly wasn't that. A good friend of ours, Dario Franchitti, was also racing in that. You see all these fabulous, big, fat American things with Hunt and Fittipaldi and Stewart written on. Bring that back.
It was basically superstars for racing drivers.
Yes. Amazing. I don't remember it really, and I don't know what I was doing, riding around chucking stones at Parky on McGrifter probably. But when all that shit was happening, I remember the M1. I remember that came a bit later.
Video coming soon. Video coming soon.
I remember Pro Car a little bit, but I don't remember the IROC thing. Presumably that wasn't because it was F1, was it? Maybe that was something. Was
Yeah,
IROC
exactly.
F1? Anyway, there was Zach Brown. What a dude, living his best life, because he's obviously doing a brilliant job in his day job, but he's also enjoying himself racing around Laguna Seca in an IROC car. I just hope McLaren win both driver and manufacturers.
I think they will.
Yeah,
I
it
think
would
they're on
it'd be
course to,
great.
aren't they?
British company. I know we're an international podcast. We shouldn't be biased towards British things,
But we're allowed.
but I am.
There was one thing I was just going to say about McLaren, just in the half-term thing. I don't know if you remember, there was a very big deal made of a big change in the aero rules, and McLaren were going to get completely stuffed by that change. And this was the one that Ferrari were waiting for. Who's won every race since then? You know, they weren't worried at all. They built that car so cleverly, so legally, so kind of in such a sort of clever, bulletproof way. It's really understanding it. And I think, by the way, one big ingredient is a man called Rob Marshall. Peter Prodromou doesn't get sung enough about, but Rob Marshall is a very, very special man. Rob Marshall,
I was with
Jonathan Wheatley, we
someone.
produced.
I was with someone having a cup of tea. Who's a good friend of Adrian Newey,
Yeah.
and I don't have the sort of the knowledge or the brains to ask him a really good question. But I said, will Adrian deliver a great car for Aston Martin? And he's like, absolutely, he will. He's
Of
all
course. Of course.
over it. You just wait. And I'm like, oh, that's quite exciting, isn't it?
Okay, half-term report. I didn't want to mention this, and I think we've covered most of this, as I think Chris quite rightly pointed out. Managed to cover most of it. Lance Stroll and Alonso are equal on points in the World Championship at the moment.
Yes.
Isn't that a weird stat?
Yeah.
Even though in 27 outings, I think he's been out qualified by Alonso, or this every session. I think this year, every time they've been out in the car in a session, Alonso's been quicker. But they're equal on points. But if Adrian Newey is going to produce this absolute rocket sled, can you keep Lance in there? I mean, I just don't understand how that
Chris,
works.
but you are forgetting that Alonso is the most unlucky driver in the world ever.
Don't you start.
This is why.
This is what I think Ferrari gutted for them. Papaya rules. I like Chris is the same. It's a bit like the Mike Tyson quotation, which I'm sure is a misquotation, but everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. It feels a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think we've seen some really good racing. Maybe we haven't celebrated this season enough. We've seen lots going on, and maybe isn't it great when you have the best driver on the grid in not the fastest car? Because he's not going to win a championship. He's not going to win many races, but he's just going to cause mayhem. Whenever he comes up behind her and he's on the track, people are scared of him. In that respect, he is the new Senna, isn't he? They just see him, and Lewis jumped off the road in Hungary to get out of his way.
Yeah.
He literally just drove off the track. So I think it's been a really good season. I think generally, the Formula One family can pat themselves on the back and go, "You've done a fucking good job. Come back stronger." And most importantly, a dear friend of this podcast, Jonathan Wheatley, who's been the boss over at what will be Audi next year. What a job he's done. It just shows you that people of quality arrive and they make a difference. And also, I mean, he's also just bought a little Audi Quattro ready
I've
for
seen that, yeah.
branding next year, and it's a work of art. So, Jonathan, enjoy your summer break and enjoy that beautiful car. So let's move on to now. We're going to go back to our American correspondent, our Car Week California correspondent, Northern California, Neil Clifford, who he was supposed to be working last week, but he actually downed tools to pick up his dictaphone and his Super 8 camera and head like an intrepid reporter, like Uncle Travelling Matt from Fraggle Rock. He went off to go and see what was going on over in Dem Car Week. What was it like?
Look, for me, it's the perfect little week's holiday, really. It's sort of, I haven't got any real notes on this, but it's sort of Glastonbury for cars. I always struggle with actual normal holidays a bit because, you've got to sort of almost
Relaxed.
pretend you're enjoying them, haven't you? Because you paid money, you got a swimming pool, you got your family's there. You're not supposed to be working, but I'm always like, oh, first 3 days are all right, and then you sort of want to go home and do stuff a little bit. But so for me, being I bombed around America for a week or 10 days and then ended up in LA. My family come out to LA. We zoomed around LA. We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Good and bad, amazing drives, bit of a breakdown. And then we set off for Carmel. We set off for, the Grapes of Wrath country, this sort of 400 miles north of Los Angeles. Beautiful countryside, point one. And maybe I should add, everyone should go and do this thing. I did it for 48 hours last year. And then I thought, shit, why aren't I doing this every year? For me, it's definitely going to try to be on my agenda, because you can do it how you want. You can do it expensive and posh and lovely with all these Ponzi car shows and Pebble Beach, which actually I've been twice, never been to Pebble Beach yet. I just don't get there. It's more about the community of people. It's thousands and thousands of people like us that are just showing up from all around the world. A lot of UK people, a lot of friends of mine that are there, young, amazing car people. And everyone just shows up, and you can do it how you want. You can just hang out in Carmel, which is a beautiful little town on the sea. You couldn't make up how pretty it is. All these obviously lovely, gorgeous houses, but you can walk along the beach for a couple of hours. You can walk around the little town. There's car shit everywhere. There's a 9/11 meeting up in that car park. The Mercedes-Benz Owners Club of America is at that petrol station. There's Camaros over there. There's the bloke from WhatsApp who bought 993 GT2s.
Jan.
Yep.
He's a good lad.
He's just driving around with his mates in 993 GT2.
Brilliant.
Eating apple pie and having coffee. There's 11 F40s up in that car park because all the F40 dudes are just having a coffee up there. It's just... We didn't really get to Monterey that much. I didn't get to any auctions. I think the auction thing is a whole nother level of discussion. You're talking to all your people in the industry about, oh, wow, the 275's gone off a bit. It's all about the 90s cars now. And, oh, shit, I should have bought the 911R even though it didn't have a 911 engine. And then there's all these, 250 California Spider long wheelbase record. You can literally do it as you want, can't you? There's amazing restaurants. You can't beat America for a breakfast. Let's just put that out there.
That's a t-shirt.
The three of us, eggs over easy, bacon, hash browns, but then a side of pancakes in the middle. And after you're halfway through your eggs, aren't you? You're full, but you want to still eat you still want to eat the pancakes, even though you're full on the bloody eggs.
Neil, does it work because it's not very, very crowded like a Goodwood?
Well, the only... It's not good, the only thing that you could compare to Goodwood, but you can't compare because the tickets are 10 times the price, let's put that out there, is that the Quail, let's talk about the Quail, which is an incredibly beautifully put on event by the Peninsula Group, which they own this amazing country club called the Quail. And, it's £1,000 for a ticket, right? So let's just make a point that it's a lot of money, which therefore means that it's not crowded like the Festival of Speed, which is also an amazing event, and it's £100 for a ticket. So
that's sort of what Goodwood charges for hospitality, but with all the crowds chucked in as well.
Yeah, well, maybe they need a posh day. That's only the £1,000 a ticket people, but you cannot fault. It is faultless, the Quail. There's loads of amazing cars being launched. I was there for the GMA launch of those two cars. There's the Tut Hill beach buggy thing. There's a new Lamborghini that you can't pronounce. There's a Bentley thing. There's a Rolls Royce thing. There's food everywhere that's obviously free because it's all part of the gig. It's all part of the ticket. There's drink everywhere. There's jets flying over. It's an amazing thing. But that's the only day that maybe is restricted due to your bank account. Let's be honest. Everything else is just open for everybody.
Cool.
You can go to Laguna Seca, as I did, feels like today, but yesterday. You can hang out there in this amazing race circuit and meet all these fabulous old dudes that have owned their 356 Speedster since 1959, have been racing it 47. You don't quite get that in the UK. You get it in a very oily way if you go to Cop Hill Climb, where a bloke built a car in a shed in 1972 and has been racing it ever since. Revival is a different thing because, they're all basically pretty much brand new cars built by Adrian Newey, aren't they? They don't really.
How could you possibly say such a thing, Neil?
They've got different engines, different. If you want to be competitive at Revival, it's a different game. And actually, it's proper racing Revival. I don't
look at the FIA papers for the grid of the TT. The words triggers and broom appear quite a lot.
Yeah. So they're both amazing, but I would. The highlight for me, which does sound poncy because it is poncy. I was invited to dinner at Clint Eastwood's ranch house. He now lives down on the coast in a smaller house, but the house that he lived in for 30 years, which it felt like being in a spaghetti western. There's like 600 doors in this house. You imagine someone jumping out of it with a gun and a leather hat.
He was mayor, wasn't he? He was mayor of Carmel.
Yeah, yeah. And this house, and it was a Singer dinner, and invited by the lovely people from Singer, who I own a Singer, so I'll really put it out there now as being a bit of a knobby person. But to be in that, this is a boy from Portsmouth with 1 O level, who was a bit thick and looked out the window a lot at school, and suddenly you're in Clint Eastwood's house having dinner. It's pretty fucking amazing, isn't it? You realise how lucky you are. So I think it's just great. You can go and do it how you want, fly to San Francisco, rent a car, drive there for 2 or 3 days. The scenery is amazing. It's our people. As always, it's about the people that you know or you meet, and you have a chat and have a big breakfast, have a coffee, sit in Carmel for 5 hours, and you just see Lamborghini SE30 driving past, in the Jamiroquai car, and then there's 7 F40s, and there's 7 Singers, and there's an old Mercedes, and there's an aquatic car. It's just going on the whole time. So for me, it's a perfect holiday, and can't beat it, really.
Neil, did you see the? Sorry, I just wondered about the Gordon Murray. The kind of the very special edition remake of the F1 GTR. Yeah, the thing at the top.
Is that mounted?
That has absolutely blown me away. Well done. I mean, getting that on sticky back plastic so quickly.
That's the McLaren, right? And that's the Gordon Murray one.
No, other way around.
It's the other way around, isn't it?
Yes, other way around.
That's amazing. Up front, it's up close, it's amazing. And the LM24 car, which, again, is, I think without the fan, it looks better. Let's be a bit controversial for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I think both those cars, a British company, what an amazing job they're doing. I know Chris might have had a tinker in one at some point recently. That that engine, the engineering of that car is all bloody fabulous, really. So they should be celebrated.
I can't wait for Chris to drive that. I really hope whoever bought all 5 gives you one for an afternoon. I cannot wait.
I don't know. Well, that might be possible. There's I've driven the standard low-powered one. So this is interesting. So I think we work, and we're really proud to work with Car and Classic, but we have to mention the fact that the RM had a pretty stunning auction over there, which I think did a couple of things for me. First, it absolutely demonstrated that America is in a very different financial place to Europe right now for the car market, and it also demonstrated that physical auctions are exciting things, aren't they? You know, there's all sorts of nonsense goes on in the room. They are quite cool. Maybe we need to help Car and Classic do a physical auction. There's an idea. There's a challenge laid down for you guys. But we can do it the Car and Classic and Chris Harris and Friends podcast way. But there was one car that sold for $26 million that was extraordinary because it was a new car. So it was a Daytona SP3 Ferrari in a split livery. What was special about the car, and Ferrari did mention this, was the first time a factory car's come out with the word Ferrari painted on it like that. They've never done that before.
Really?
They've never sanctioned it before, but to have Ferrari written across the car, it's quite garish. Anyhow, there's a bit of there's something going on there. It's quite interesting. So a friend of mine just sent me this. In case you'll be discussing the $26 million Daytona SP3 that was auctioned off on your podcast this week, ... Assuming the buyer is American, this is a 501c3 charity. So anything above actual price is tax deductible, whatever actual price is. So if you take 26 million, deduct 4 million in value, you have a deduction of 22 million, save 37% on your federal tax bill, another 13% if you live in California. So that's 50%. So now you've saved $11 million buying that car. And the cost of that car is 15 million. Still expensive, but you'd probably be in Ferrari's good books for a long, long time.
Win-win.
And a full carbon SP3 was about 6 million without taxes. What a crazy world we live in.
Was there some donation to charity on that? It was, wasn't there? Because I was watching it. I was actually on the plane trying to get into my bloody Wi-Fi to watch the RM auction for my mate Harvey, who works there, and I wanted to see how the 911R went, and then I was desperately thinking, "Oh shit! Why didn't I even think seriously about that?" But I don't think it hasn't got the right engine or some bloody thing. And then I saw the 26 million for that SP3.
It's because it was all because you're putting it into a charity.
Ferrari were there. There was a whole bunch of executives in the front row from Ferrari. As soon as the car sold, they all got out and walked off.
Of course they did.
It was a Ferrari charity thing.
Can I just a quick if you get a moment in your little summer break, the three of you or any of our listeners, read the Hildebrand Rarity. It's a very short James Bond story. Ian Fleming wrote it. I can't remember which year. It was early 60s. It's a fantastic story. Bond is basically bored. He's in the Seychelles with a mate, and he gets to crew a very early super yacht. And it is very linked to Americans, charity, revenge, murder. It's a fabulous 25 pages. You won't put it down. And the Hildebrand Rarity is a fish. Just read it. You will not.
Send us the link for the Audible version.
I will send you. I promise to send you that link. You'll love it.
We've gone an hour and 12 minutes now. We've still got. I think we might need to just call a two-car garage now. Neil's jet lagged to hell. So can we roll the next two things on the agenda next week?
This afternoon, I spent the whole afternoon working out cheese or car.
Yeah, but cheese or cars is not going to date, is it? Can we do it next week?
I'm glad I spent all afternoon doing that.
Okay, we're going to do cheese or cars now.
No, we'll do it next week.
We'll do it next week. Neil Clifford is jet lagged to hell, and I think
I'm good. I'm cool.
No, do it next week.
So, now we've teased it. Chris Cooper.
No, we're going to do two-car garage. We'll have to come back to that some other occasion.
No, wait there. For next week, Chris Cooper has done another one of his famous quizzes, which apparently has been plagiarized by something like Butlins in Pontefract or something, and they was found to be in a quiz night that someone was doing service station or cheese. So we're going to do car or cheese, but it'll be next week. Okay. So moving on to the two-car garage, in association with Car and Classic, who's going to do a physical auction with us
at Car Week next year.
Yes.
Can I just say on Car Week? Can I? Because I want to say this a moment ago.
Yes.
The Quail aside, which actually doesn't sound. If I was half expecting you to say it's 10 grand a ticket. Actually, everything about Car Week, the whole shebang, makes me think: why would you not go there rather than Goodwood? Honestly,
well, Goodwood is also brilliant. I think it's like saying cheese or cheesecake.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's gone beyond that point. But no, it's not about Goodwood. This is about Car Week. I think Car Week just sounds. I think it's brilliant. It sounds like almost too good to be true. It sounds just all of the stuff you were putting on your Instagram and everyone else was putting on. I just thought that's how it should be. That's how cars.
It's really lovely. It's because California climate is bloody great. So you wake up and you've got a bit of cloud on the mountains, and then every morning at 11:30 it all goes blue.
It smells good over. It always smells good over there as well.
Yeah, it's 25 degrees. It's not 35, so you can walk about. You're not sweating your nuts off, and you know there's no shit restaurants, because if they're shit, no one goes to them and they close, right? So you can eat anywhere. You can sit outside. It's very, very, very casual. I think that's the key point. And you can just, go to the aquarium in Monterey. You can go for a little drive along, Big Sur. You can just hang out in Carmel. You can walk the beaches. And there's just cars fucking everywhere. It's just what's not good about that? It's brilliant.
Right, all of you out there listening, that's your holiday next year. You're not going to go to bloody Magaluf or wherever you go. You're going to Car Week.
Yeah.
Now, 2-car garage. Oh, I haven't got my bloody papers with me, have I?
Yeah.
It's been 40 years since Live Aid, and you're reflecting on how things seemed so much simpler in the 1980s. Pick 2 cars from the 80s that evoke that spirit. Budget, 35 grand. I'm going first.
Yeah, don't ask me because I haven't done it.
Okay, because I've smashed this out of the park. I've smashed this out of the park. Okay, first of all, Fiat Strada Abarth 130 TC.
Oh, that is very good. Only one
It's actually a Ritmo, but it's a Strada, and you buy it for that Recaro front seat, a pair of which I've just bought for another project of mine. But that is, what a car that is. Amazing bit of kit.
Has it got the holes in the seats?
Yeah, it's got the hole in the seat.
Yeah.
I'll get you a bit of seat porn now. Hold on, watch this. Where are I? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I was working in the Fiat garage when that came out.
Mate, when you saw the seat the first time, you're like, "What?"
Yeah,
that's straight out of a racing car.
Yeah,
there they are.
It was the first seat with a hole in it I ever saw.
Yes,
you see that?
Yeah,
amazing. Right, second car. So you've got your sports car. That's the thrash around the lanes, and then I've actually emailed the seller of this car about buying it, but I just but I didn't. But it's the poverty spec W126 in 300 SE format. Look at that. This one is a joy because it's got. I'm pretty sure this is the one. It's got cloth inside.
No,
it's got wheel hubcaps, not alloy wheels, hubcaps. Can you imagine buying one of the most expensive cars on the road? It comes with no radio, hubcaps, and a cloth interior.
It looks like a wheelbase though. Is it an L?
No, it's an SE.
It's an SE.
Cool. I like that.
And that's so the combined price is 29 grand. I've got 6 grand for when they inevitably shit themselves. Chris Cooper, what have you gone for with your 35,000 large?
Well, first of all, there's a mistake we need to point out here. Live Aid wasn't 40 years ago. It can't possibly be 40 years ago.
Ridiculous.
I mean, that is just because if it was 40 years ago, that means during Live Aid, July 1985, it was less than 40 years since VJ Day, Victory in Japan Day, which is later this month in August. Who can remember who was the introducer and announcer when the concert went live on BBC and radio around the world? What was the name of the announcer and introducer?
No.
My God. Good.
There's no music.
Of course, but...
Were they up with Bob Geldof hitting the table, or were they somewhere else?
Not Jimmy Savile.
It was Richard Skinner.
No.
The DJ, Richard Skinner.
Yes.
Who was the artist that played both in Wembley and Philadelphia?
Somebody flew on the Concorde, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Genesis or Phil Collins.
And what was the song that was regarded as the best song of the most amazing set? This is a bit more of a personal opinion.
Was this We Will Rock You by Queen?
No. Close, though.
Heroes? David Bowie? Oh.
Queen's got to be the Queen one.
It was Queen, which was the song.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
No. What was the one that absolutely It's Radio Gaga.
It was, yeah.
Because they were doing this, weren't they? Yes.
That's what brought Queen back into the consciousness. So yeah, I can remember exactly where I was at each part of that day, as it went from the lunchtime in the morning into the evening. It's one of those things. So it's peak 80s. So I think right now there are two cars on the auction that I think are just peak 80s. There is this will be sort of on auction just before we go on air on Friday. W123 Merc.
Yeah. I looked at that. Gorgeous.
Just look at that. That was one of them. And then the other one, I kind of torn. There were lots of Mercs that I really, really liked. But then this one, it's manual S2.
Oh,
S2. That starts in about a week's time.
928.
Yeah. 928 S2 manual. Yeah. That's what I do.
Okay, like that. Neil Clifford.
Okay. 1985, right? Was it 85?
Yeah.
The great thing about the Car and Classic website and app is you can select your brand and then you can narrow down to 8.
Yes, you can. Exactly.
Very, very clever. Which
very good app.
I've just discovered. So,
how do you think we cope with this question?
No. I've only just discovered it now. Jaguar, obviously, brilliant cars of the 80s. I'm going XJ, 1985. I just took a photograph of it.
Is that an XJ40 then or not?
No. 85 was the Series 3. Frankly, the last of the pretty one.
Yeah. XJ40 was 86. 85, 86.
Gold, you can't really see it. Look at that.
Oh, yes, we can.
Oh, yes. Look at that.
Absolutely fantastic.
It's probably in the fucking Netherlands. Oh, no, Hemel Hempstead.
That's just, I could see it. If I stand on top of the barn, I could see
it's
that.
It's always in the fucking Netherlands.
Gold
it's in Hemel Hempstead.
Going tomorrow.
That's about 6 miles from me. And then, so that, how much is that? I'm not in the auctions. I'm in the classifieds. I'm being a bit flaky, but nevertheless, there are plenty of Jaguars in the auction sites. And then I haven't found this, but I will find it, and we can post it in the recording. You're going to get an XJS, aren't you? You're going to have a Jag 4-door, and then you're going to have a Jag convertible, V12, hopefully. That's only $8,000. This little Series 3.
There are a few.
So I can get a nice V12 cab, and you need about $5,000 on the side for the overheating situation. But my brother his mate was doing the lighting on the main stage, and his mate rang him and said, "Do you want to come up to Wembley tomorrow? I'm working tomorrow, and give me a hand with some lights." He had no idea what it was. He spent the whole of the 12 hours in the rafters above every single gig doing the lighting, and he didn't take a fucking camera.
Oh,
luckily it has been. I think it was recorded by somebody.
But you imagine the book
view.
If you would have taken a big bag of black and white and Kodachrome and a decent camera, you'd have your retirement money, wouldn't you? Bless him. He's all right anyway. But nevertheless, that was bless him. But he was there. He's amazing.
So for me, the 80s car, I wanted this so badly. I only wanted 2 cars in the 80s. It was a Porsche 944. There's a convertible here.
Yeah.
CS2, 211 horsepower. I just thought that was the car. And the convertible, I mean,
it's quite a doctor's car, that, as well, for some reason, I think.
Because you think somewhere in my little soul I knew. And then this car, I mean, we've talked about it quite a bit, but it's the E32 7 Series.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I just think this thing, I just think it's such a stunning car. They would be my absolute 80s dreams, those two.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think we've chosen 8 better cars than that. They are all absolute stunners. So,
did you notice we're quite German, aren't we? Apart from Neil, where have they gone?
Where
have they gone?
Yeah, apart from
let's choose some music before we go. Chris Cooper, I know that you're still slightly smarting with the fact
Not
we've
at
not
all.
done car reviews this
Not
week,
at
but we
all.
will be doing it next week,
But you
Chris. Don't worry.
can't cheat. You can't cheat between now and then and learn the
No, we
names
won't.
of.
We won't.
What, of cheeses? I've got a busy
Just,
week.
Just give us a piece of music.
Because it's been quite. Not everybody has enjoyed the hot summer and the sunny summer. Particularly my wife is a farmer, and lots of farmers whose grain most harvests have finished in this week in the UK because it's been so hot and dry. Yields are down, so not everyone loves a hot sunny summer. But so with apologies to that community, I've had this in my head this week. It's the Nina Simone cover of "Here Comes the Sun."
Brilliant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good tune.
Nice.
That's the number one Beatles song on Spotify.
Yeah, I just prefer the Nina Simone version. Yeah, it's just a
I'm full of shit, but that's the number one Beatles song, which I was
George Harrison
surprised
song
for
as
that.
well, isn't it?
Manish, what's your tune going to be?
Well, I'm going to get a little bit of a cheesy clap from you guys, but I can't believe we've done 50 in this way. We've had 1 week where we haven't done one, so it's 51 weeks. So I guess next time it's going to be exactly a year since the new one started.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, we were all in Bologna together.
We were.
When we took that great photo that kind of summed up, our friendship. And I'm going through a phase of listening to really great 70s English music. And there's a beautiful song called Friends. It came out in 1970 by a band called Arrival. I think they probably had 1 or 2 hits, if that. And just listen to it. I think it's about 4 of us, actually. It's a great song, Friends.
I'll look into it later. Neil Clifford.
I was smoking around in LA in my car, and I only play American music in America, and I love Tom Petty. It's really sad. I mean, we're all going to die, aren't we? It's fucking annoying, isn't it? Bless him. It's so annoying. Free Falling, Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Driving up Ventura Boulevard at 6 a.m. Life doesn't really get any better than that.
That's a winner.
So that's a great song. So a couple of weeks ago, the man behind a lot of the Quail Peninsula, who's a friend of ours, lovely Philip, who I call Uncle Philip because even though he's a bit younger than me, he's quite a bit more capable than me and tends to help me with stuff. He collected me in another form of transport, which is, let's say, has a gearbox but goes up and down. He's good at that, and I'm very lucky. I'm not very good at flying. Anyhow, when we got into this thing, he gave me a set of cans, as he does. There you go, cans. And I'm sure he'd arranged this, but he put on the most perfect tune, and I've played it once a day since then. Because the intro to it was so cool, and I reckon he got all the volume. He knew. I'm playing this tune. He knew they're going to love this tune.
He doesn't do anything by accident.
And it was "Daddy Cool" by Boney M. And I cannot stop playing it. There's that intro line. It's such a cool song. I like any of you now not to go away on your streamer and put on "Daddy Cool" by Boney M.
It's good.
It's sensational. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 50. I have to apologise on behalf of my learning colleagues to Chris Cooper for not doing car or cheese. I know he's put some legwork in this afternoon, and I'm really sorry about that. I suspect Finley's been involved as well. So, Finley, if you've been involved, I apologise to you as well. But we're 1 hour and 28 minutes into this epic, and we've got to let Neil get some sleep because he's got to go.
That's a very good point.
Revolutionise.
I've got to be normal tomorrow.
So thank you from me, Chris Harris, Chris Cooper, Neil Clifford, and Manish Pandey. We'll bore you again next week. Bye-bye.